Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Wilmarie Newton, and I will be your moderator today. In order to avoid background noise, I ask that you please mute yourself if you're not speaking. However, you can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, or you can type it into the chat box. You can also use the raise hand feature to let us know you'd like to speak, and we'll address you. If you have a webcam, we welcome you to turn it on so we can make this more interactive. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be archived on CABE's website under Services. And now I'd like to introduce Patrice McCarthy, Executive Director and General Counsel for CABE.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm joined here this afternoon with Don Harris. Don is the immediate past president of CABE. He is also the chairman of the Bloomfield Board of Education and serves on the State Board of Education. And I know when Don begins his remarks, he'll tell you a little more about his extensive background. So I'm very excited that we're able to provide this program, which really came out of discussions with Don about how we help people that are not yet candidates necessarily for the Board of Education, because we do some very specific professional development for board candidates, but people who might be thinking about, gee, maybe this is a way I can contribute in my community. So we're going to give you an overview, and then we're very happy to take your questions. We do offer a variety of training programs that I'll talk a little bit more about at the end, so that you get the sense that if you choose to go the route of serving on a Board of Education, you are not going to be alone in tackling some of the challenges that you will face as a board member. In Connecticut, boards of education are unique in that they fulfill the constitutional right to a free public education. And responsibility for making that opportunity available has been delegated by the legislature to local and regional boards of education. So even though you are elected or appointed locally, you actually are fulfilling a state function. And our statutes lay out very specific responsibilities for boards of education. That's the subject of a whole nother webinar. In terms of basic requirements, there really are none other than your desire to serve your community. You have to be a resident of the community on which you would serve on the Board of Education, and you cannot be employed in any capacity by the Board of Education on which you serve. You could be employed and run for election, but you would have to recognize that you would need to resign your employment before you took the oath of office. The boards of education are comprised of a variety of individuals with a variety of backgrounds. Some are teachers, many have no background in education at all. Some are parents, some have never had children. So representing the community on behalf of the students is really an opportunity that is available to anyone who's willing to make that commitment. So I now want to talk to Don, getting his extensive experience. And Don, can you tell us a little bit about your role on the Bloomfield Board of Education?
I am, thank you for inviting me, Patrice. I'm currently a member of the Bloomfield Board. I chair that board, and it's a board of education of 7 residents in town. And I've been the chair now for 12 years. You know, and what does that mean? That means that basically on a daily basis, I'm in contact with the superintendent, you know, discussing different issues that may be going on within the school system. And by example, I got a call from the superintendent earlier this morning that we have a water pipe break at one of our schools. And so we have to dismiss early, you know, and so now I'm getting updates as to when the pipe will be fixed and whether kids can come back to school tomorrow. So it's that's basically my role. I also, as the chair, I run all the meetings of the board. I sit on all the committees, and I'm there because I'm dedicated to education.
So Don, the good news is, as a board member, you don't have to go fix the pipe, right?
I don't have to.
Okay, not a job for members of the Board of Education. Talk a little bit about the distinction between, you've talked about your role as chair. How about the role of what I would call rank and file members of the Board of Education who don't hold that position?
Okay, you know, we have on our board, and I'm looking across, we have a registrar of voters, we have a college professor, we have a person who runs our local cable access channel. We have a real estate person. We have a financial analyst. And so, you know, they come from different aspects of their life. And they all don't have children. I believe 3 of them have children currently in the school system. You know, rank and file is exactly that, rank and file. Me personally, again, I've been on there 12 years. My kids have already gone through the system. I have had grandchildren who've gone through the system since I came onto the board. But you know, I'd have to go back to my history with Bloomfield, and if I could, let me just state, I have a long career with Bloomfield. I have served as an educator in the system for 39 years. I was a teacher. I was a basketball coach. I was an athletic director. I was a vice principal, and I ended my career in 2006 after 6 years serving as the principal of the high school. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to retire. And I took the year off, and then I got recruited. And I went to what I tell some people, I jokingly say, I went to the dark side because I became a member of the town council. And anybody who knows the town council knows that they control all the money. And I was the second highest vote getter right out the blocks. So I became the deputy mayor, and I served 2 terms as deputy mayor. And you know, and that was kind of where I was going. And then I got recruited by our local town committee. They had a need at the Board of Ed. So they asked me would I switch over. And of course, my heart has always been in education. And I said, yeah, that's something I would like to do. So that's where I've been for the last 12 years.
So I think you've touched upon this, Don, but we have people that are joining us this afternoon who are thinking about board service. You had a long history in education. What motivated you, and what do you think motivates other members of your board to choose to engage on behalf of the students as a board member?
My motivation for the 39 years I've been in education, to the last 12 that I have served, even to the 4 years I'm sitting on the council, my motivation has always been the children of the town of Bloomfield. That's where my love, that's where my passion is. to doing the best we can do for our children. And as Patrice already stated, I'm also a member of the State Board of Ed. I was appointed by the governor. I was Governor Malloy 6 years ago to be a member of the State Board. And then I was reappointed by Governor Lamont for a second term. But I'm there for children. Issues that come up both in Bloomfield and with the state. If it's best for kids, it's something I want to do, something I want to be involved with. And that's pure and simple my motivation. You know, it's got to be for the people that are going to take over when we reach, like I've reached the status of a senior citizen.
So we know that this varies to some extent among communities, but if someone is interested in exploring the opportunity to serve on the Board of Education, how would they express their interest?
Well, there are different avenues. Usually in most towns, you have a Democratic town committee or a Republican town committee. And requires you to, you got to start to get involved in your community government. You know, how are decisions made? How do you get to sit on the council? How do you get to sit on the board? It's usually through these avenues of local town committees. Now, it gets difficult if you are if you're an independent voter. But you can still approach your Democratic town committee, your DST, DTS, and DTC, I'm sorry, or Republican town committee, and start attending their meetings, because all of their meetings have to be open. And start attending their meetings, see what goes on. It's right now the time of the year where they are getting ready to do their nominations for the upcoming election. All the boards of ed, the councils, all of those local elected positions are occurring this November. And you get involved. Now, there are some towns, and Patrice may have to help me with this, that are quote unquote nonpartisan. In Bloomfield is a Democratic community. And I've been in Bloomfield for a long, long time, and there was a time that Republicans were in the majority position. Now it's the Democrats in the majority position. But Simsbury, I mentioned as a different kind of board, and I think there's probably 3 or 4 of them around the state that are nonpartisan. So in other words, in Bloomfield, we have a 7-person board, and because we are a Democratic community, at least 4 of those positions will be given to Democrats. Republican strongholds, it's usually the 1 more or 2 more than the majority. Simsbury is nonpartisan, so they don't recognize Republican, Democrat, and I believe they switch parties every year or every other year to pick their chairs.
So if a board member, if someone is thinking about running for the board, it'd probably be a good idea if they started attending Board of Education meetings to help both them decide whether this is a role they want to serve in,
Mhm.
and also to understand what some of the issues are that the board is facing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. In education, there are issues in every town. In Bloomfield, it's our per pupil expenditure. You know, we have a very high per pupil expenditure, but there are reasons for that. You know, we get compared to other towns in surrounding area. Well, theirs is not as high as our, well, they don't have the same issues we have in Bloomfield. In other parts of the state, there are other issues that may come up. You know, people oftentimes talk about test scores as being a measure of a great school system if your test scores are up high. What is your absenteeism rate? What is your, what colleges are your graduating students going to? You know, there's a multitude of issues out there that people focus on, but Patrice is absolutely correct. When I said get involved in your community, attend a Board of Education meeting. I mean, fortunate or unfortunate because of COVID, you can now do most meetings online. And you know, you can get an idea of what's going on in your Board of Education or your town hall, whatever floats your boat. And you know, and find out, how often are they meeting? And what's involved in becoming a member? You know, it's because you're making a commitment. You're making a commitment on behalf of again, on behalf of the kids.
So you mentioned find out how often they meet. I've often heard board members say, yes, I was recruited for the board. They told me it was just 1 2-hour meeting a month, but they didn't tell me about the special meetings and the committee meetings, and the fact that not all board meetings are actually 2 hours. Now Dawn is well known for running a tight ship as a board chairperson, but in many communities, including many where I've worked with the board, it's not over in an hour. It's not over in 2 hours. So talk a little bit about the reality of board service.
Again, the importance of taking a look or attending a meeting, and you get a picture of what goes on. I mean, Patrice is correct. If my meeting runs more than an hour and 15 minutes, it's gone too long. And so most of my meetings are over in about an hour. Bloomfield is, we're not the norm. We meet only once a month. I think most of your boards out there are meeting twice a month. You know, on a particular designated day, usually Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, they'll meet twice a month. But then there are also committees. In Bloomfield, we have 3 committees. We have a curriculum, policy committee, and a finance committee. I even do that one efficiently, but not all of them. I can't say the same for everybody, which only strongly makes my point that you need to get involved. You can attend all of these meetings as a interested resident. You know, you call the board. When is your next committee meetings? When is your next Board of Ed meetings? And be in attendance and get a feel of what goes on, you know? So hopefully that answered.
That's great, Don. So you talked about some of the challenges being local concerns about what the per pupil expenditure is, comparison with other districts as to test scores and absenteeism rates and post high school graduation plans for students. We've also seen in recent years an increasing number of challenges around the support that districts need to provide for students for their social emotional welfare. Recently, challenges about books in school libraries and in the curriculum, and even challenges to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. You want to talk a little bit about what that means for a board when they're faced with those challenges?
It's, let me say this. It is a challenge. Increasingly, I don't want to scare anybody off, but it's not the same today as it was 12 years ago. The world is not the same as it was 12 years ago. There are issues of diversity which are loud and clear. You know, people enter a school system, parents come in, they want to know how many teachers of color you have. They want to know what books are in the library, and have you been accustomed to taking books out of the library? I tell people all the time, I joke, I said, this is not Florida, and we don't control, I said, the librarian handles all of that. But challenges, it's not easy. It's not easy. But again, if you keep the children number one in your mind, you're doing this for them to make sure that they're going to have a great education presented to them. And I think it's important. Diversity is a very important issue. It's critical to me. I mean, look at me. You know, I have gone from, I was a student in the Bloomfield school system. Okay, I won't tell you how many years ago I graduated, but it's been decades. Okay, but I was like, and on the bus ride home, I was the only person of color on that bus ride home. Was that easy? It became easy, but no, I had issues on that. Today in Bloomfield, I mean, Bloomfield has gone from being a, I want to say, back in the 60s and 50s, Bloomfield was a farming community. We had maybe 10% of our school system were people of color. Today, it's about 85% are people of color. So we have changed, and it's, you know, and basically we're not a town that people are running away from because they moved to Bloomfield, they like the community, they stay there. And they're going to school there, but it's changes that are going on in the world that it's just not the same. It's just not the same. But you know, that should not be a barrier to you. You know, if you know, I was thinking about question of what things are challenging, and you know what's most challenging to me? When I first went on the board, I started grocery shopping in another town. Why? Because you know, if I walked into Stop and Shop or I walked into Geisler's, somebody said, there's the chair of the Board of Education. And I'm going to hear all about their troubles and all about what problems they're having in the school system. And then I have to give them my traditional line that I give everybody that's been created here as along with the line. Everybody says it now. Don Harris knows how to stay in his lane. I am the chair of the Board of Education. I am not the superintendent of schools. I don't have the hire and fire power of the principals or the teachers. As a board member, we have one employee, and that's the superintendent. Our responsibility is to oversee the system that he is the director of. And we evaluate him each and every year. But he or she runs the system. I know how to stay in my lane.
We're going to have those words put in calligraphy over the meeting room here where our board of directors meets in honor of Don. And many people now say, stay in your lane. But it did start with Don. So you've talked about some of the challenges, Don. Talk about some of the biggest rewards as a school board member.
Gosh. Rewards.
We know it's not the compensation, since
No.
board members in Connecticut cannot be compensated, unlike board members in some other states, including Florida.
Yeah, that's right. And some people in other states get big money. They get big money. And I looked and I said, wow. But rewards, you know, I'm continually getting calls from especially our elementary school. Will I come in and read to the students? Oh, what a grand day that is, you know, because they hand me a book and I'm sitting there and with a group of 15 kindergarten or first graders, and I'm reading this book, and they're just, you know, their eyes are big, they're wide, mouths are open. That's fun. I enjoy that. I enjoy attending plays. At our middle school, we just had put on a play this past weekend that was just outstanding. Different musicals at the holiday season that you can attend, and graduation. You know, that's kind of the end of school, end of public school for our kids, but those are all rewards. That's why you get into this business, because you're doing something for your kids.
You're part of something very meaningful, and despite the challenges, particularly some increased challenges in public education in recent years, I see that as the greatest opportunity to really make a difference in your community as a board member.
Absolutely.
So what advice do you have for people who want to explore serving in this role?
Well, let's go back. I suggested that you get involved in your community, find out when the board is meeting, attend meetings, ask questions. I know you all know somebody who's got children in school, or you may have children in the school. Get involved, ask questions, so that, and all this is under the title of do your homework. Do your homework. So know what you're getting involved in, because it's a heck of a thing. You decide, okay, I'm running for the board, and I get elected, and then I start with meetings and say, gosh, I didn't know it was going to be like this. And you know, so do your homework, recognize what you're signing up for. Keep an open mind. keep an open mind. And again, you're doing everything for the children in your community, perhaps even your children. Don't go into it with an idea. I'll tell you a funny story. I think it's funny now. I didn't think it was funny when it happened to me. But I took over Bloomfield High School as the principal in the year 2000. And I was initially labeled as the interim principal. And there was one board member that voted against me because he wasn't sure I was the right candidate for the position. Now, back then, each board member was assigned a school that they were to oversee. I don't know why that happened that way, but it did. This board member who voted against me was assigned the high school. So, you know, and as a high school schedule usually starts at 7:40 to 2:15. Well, I was usually in my office every morning by 6:30, maybe 6:45. And one day I had one of the teachers came down and said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." They told me that this board member was in the teacher's room 2 or 3 days the week prior with a notebook and pad, asking every teacher when they walked into the teacher's room, what's going well here at the high school? What's not going well here at the high school? And I said, "He's what?" And, you know, and I laugh about it today. And this gentleman is now one of my longtime friends. So he and I laugh at the same thing. But, you know, it wasn't funny then, but it goes back to my point. Board members do have the responsibility of supervising the superintendent, not their local teachers, principals, etc. So, you know, they need to stay out of the school unless they're invited. You know, I would always invite board members to come to presentations, or if you got something you want to talk to me about, let's talk. But, you know, leave the handling of the schools up to your superintendent.
Good point. Well, I want to tell our audience a little bit about the supports that are available from CABE should you actually become a candidate, and then when you hopefully are successful in your election to the board. CABE runs a candidate webinar, usually in early September during each election cycle for local elections. So we'll be doing that this coming September. And that gives you an overview of the legal roles and responsibilities of a board. Not the full-blown everything you ever need to know as a board member, but just so that you have some background, because very often when you're elected to the board, you're sworn in some communities within the first week or two, and you're at your first board meeting before you have time for any professional development. So also know that your current board members and your superintendent are a great source of information when you assume the role of board member. So rely on them. CABE also offers, in addition to an annual conference in conjunction with the Superintendent's Association, we have a new board member leadership program in December of election years. So you've been elected to the board. It's a great opportunity. It's a day-long program where we go in much greater depth to the many issues and responsibilities that you'll be dealing with. Then on an ongoing basis, we offer workshops on collective bargaining, freedom of information, policy issues, just a whole host of topics, as well as webinars. COVID has moved us into offering a great number of webinars on a regular basis. And we do archive those on the CABE website. So if you're not available when they happen to be offered, they continue to be a source of professional development. We also have staff members, particularly I see Nick Caruso on our screen, that go out and work with individual boards of education to help them better understand their roles, to facilitate goal setting or strategic planning or board self-evaluation. So just know that there really is a host of resources. Don't be concerned that you are out there on your own. And we have a cadre of very experienced board members that participate in our webinars that are happy to offer guidance. We also are a phone call or an email away to boards of education to provide you support and direction, and help you sort through things that you may think, I think I probably need to know a little more about this before I take action. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if we have any questions, Will Murray.
We don't have any questions in the chat box, but please feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question.
Nick, you can't ask a question, but you can provide information. You seem to be muted somehow.
I think I may not be muted now. I forgot there's a little button on the microphone too that I forget to push off. So anyway, yeah, Don triggered a couple thoughts, and I agree with everything he said. I would also say that you may very well know someone on your local school board, maybe a neighbor or somebody else. The chair is always somebody that you might want to give a call to and say, look, I'm thinking of running. What can you tell me about serving in this community? I actually served on the Bloomfield Board of Ed before Don. And it was, I think I was a board member during the biggest transition from, one community to another. And it did leave itself to some challenges. But again, my life changed when I became a school board member. I was a contractor in town, business person, and now my life is all about school boards because it's such a powerful thing to be involved in. You are making decisions that impact the rest of your community's life. The children you're dealing with, their entire life depends on what you do, because we know a successful school experience means a greater likelihood of success in life. And you hold the keys to that as school board members. They talked about meetings. The other thing I would mention is Don mentioned going to plays and such. I made a point to go to every single home football game for 10 years. There's a lot of other things as a board member. In fact, I got this wonderful plaque from the athletic department for attending all those events. But it's a nonstop job, but it is so empowering. And Don said with graduation, that was my high point every year, to sit there and watch these young people leaving, getting ready to go out in the world. Those empower you to take the difficult moments because of the highs you get from all the other things that you do. The only other thing I think I would say is leave your ego at the door. You're not there to have people tell you how great you are, or I'm going to make decisions. I'm part of this board. I'm a board member. There's a singular term for other types of political people. You're a councilman, congressman, senator. There's a singular term for those. You are a member of a school board, and it's the board that has the power. And so you're only part of that. And when you work collectively together, you can do so much for your community. So I'm going to stop now, but it's such an incredible thing to do. And you'll see people that, we just lost a colleague who'd been a board member for 46 years. He was 100 years old and was at a meeting, a CABE meeting just this past spring, because it was part of his life and he was so dedicated to it. So you'll make friends, you will meet colleagues, and it's just a wonderful way to give back to your community.
Thanks, Nick.
And Nick, also tell them our secret.
Well, I'm assuming this is the one. I don't know how deep we want to get here, but Don and I are 2 of the 3 Bloomfield High School graduates to actually chair the Board of Ed. And both our parents were on the Board of Ed at different times, but prior to when we were on. So I'm one of those.
And on top of that, and you can tell, Nick is a former student of mine.
Yes.
That's right. When you said 30 something years of, or even 40 something, I figured you were my 9th grade teacher in 54 years ago. So you've been doing this a very long time, Don. There's your secret.
I think I better cut this off before we get into any other secrets that I may not know about yet. Kathleen.
Hi, a lot of buttons to click. I apologize. 3 years in, Zoom should be much easier. It's a new computer. Hello, thank you. Thank you very much for this meeting. My name is Kathleen Callahan. I am from Stratford. I am not likely running for Board of Education, but I am our town committee chair, one of our town committee chairs. So I thought it was very important that I join and hear some information that you're presenting. Who knows if I run for Board of Education? It's always possible. So as time goes on, we never know. But one of the things I did want to say beyond thank you for doing this, because I think it's really important. When we come to town council, everyone knows what that is. When it comes to our land boards, no one knows. In Board of Education, you know, you kind of think you know. So I appreciate this very much. I think one of the things that I wanted to ask about or talk about, which is really important to me as recruitment of candidates was brought up quite a bit, is in the past, I know, and I've only been the chair since it's less than a year now, people have been recruited without not fully knowing what they're getting into. And I don't want to say it's been deceitful or anything like that. People may not have known who were asking them, and it was, oh, we got to get a slate together, we got to get candidates. And I will not, I refuse to do that, because it is a huge time commitment. And I know, especially with the Board of Education, with the deep desire to keep children at the forefront and knowing how important this role is, I want to make sure people really understand how much time it may take and how different the challenges are now than they were before. We can read the news and see that it's not just at the up top, at the top level, things are happening at local levels. And I want people to understand the time and any kind of security concerns or safety concerns they have. So that is important to me as I ask people to do this work. So I think everybody I've talked to knows and is really engaged and wants to do this. But is there anything outside of our local, you know, you talk to how unique we are and that we don't get paid, and the state, it's state statute that our Board of Education members are fulfilling. Anything else that CABE requires from board members in their time at all, time commitment, other than all that you give voluntarily? You know, you provide for us with the trainings, which thank you. And it was great to hear about that September training and then December for new board members. But is there any time they would be required to give other than their Board of Ed time?
No, we are a voluntary membership association. We are blessed to have individuals, including a current member of the Stratford board, Janice, who volunteers to serve as an area director. Don Harris has served as many roles, culminating in the role of president of CABE, but that is strictly their individual decisions to make that additional volunteer commitment.
Right. Okay.
We do not have in Connecticut at this point any required professional development for Board of Ed members, but we certainly encourage board members to engage in that, whether it be our state level professional development regional meetings, or staff will go out to an individual Board of Education and provide professional development. In person or by Zoom, we're out there on a regular basis, particularly Nick.
Yeah, and thank you for all that, because I think that's really important. People, it isn't over what he's going to bark while I'm talking. No, it is really important work, and people go in, and I know the skill set is varied, and so many people want to do when they do this. They're so committed, want to be able to do this. So getting the different professional development to match the skills they have to fill the role is important. And I know the environment and the climate right now is rough. So I want to, as the, as the chair, want to make sure that everyone has the information going forward. And so that's it. I want to make sure everybody's fully briefed. We've talked with Janice, Janice, of course, and anybody will talk with her in our current, because Janice is terming out, but our current member right now, they will talk with her. They'll talk to the superintendent, make sure that all the committees, subcommittees, they know the time commitment there and all that. So I think that's important for everybody else that's on that call, not just here in Stratford, anybody else here. What you said is very important. Go to the meetings. Ours are all recorded and on YouTube. I don't know about other towns. I would say watch those on YouTube. Make sure you talk to past members, how much time it's what you put in. I mean, you can go to a meeting and that's it. I don't think anybody that's sitting on this call right now is going to just do that. But, just to make sure that you do know the commitment, the time commitment, and why you're doing it, Don, that is it. You're doing it for the children and your community, because we all need it right now. So thank you all.
Thank you for your service, Kathleen, because I have served as the town chair of the Democratic Party. I did that for 2 years. And that was also sitting on the board, also sitting on the state board. And I was so happy to say bye, so I could sit out in the audience and just be another member. That's very unusual. And I thank you for your commitment.
And Kathleen has a unique challenge because for those of you from other communities, Stratford is the town in Connecticut that has a 4-year limit. You can, as a Board of Ed member, you can serve 1 4-year term and then you have to go off the board. So that makes recruitment a constant challenge, because you might have individuals who say, I'd be happy to run again, but they're not allowed to.
And it's a staggered term. So we have the minority representation of the state law on a staggered board. So every 2 years is an election for the 4-year term. So you have 3 seats open, then 4 seats open, and 3 seats open, and 4 seats. And we are in the minority, our party currently. So it's a challenge. So we're working it. We're staying up and then trying best we can.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
Is there a hand up right there? Jill?
No, that's our.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm practicing educator wait time. Not my strong point. All right, I think that we will bring this to a close. I want to thank Don so much for having this idea and being part of the implementation. We wish you all good luck and hope that you do consider board service, and hope that you share, if you have friends and colleagues that are also thinking about board service. This webinar will be archived on the CABE website, and they are welcome to access it there. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.